Rob is joining now.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Noden, and I'm the current chair of the Yellow Springs Planning Commission. I'll be your master of Zoom ceremonies for the evening. And what I'm going to do first is call the meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Yes, Doden.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Curlis.
Here.
Amend.
Here.
And Matt Kirk, are you there yet? Kirk is not here. Also present are Village Solicitor Breanne Parcels and Planning and Zoning Administrator Denise Swinger, Administrative Assistant Raven Behrens.
Good, thank you very much. I'm just going to briefly go over the agenda for tonight. The first thing we'll do is review the minutes of the February 9th meeting, and then we'll have talk about any communications that we've received. We'll have Laura Curlis, will you be doing a council report?
Very briefly. Briefly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there will be a time then there will be a time for citizen comments for any items that are not on tonight's agenda. And then we have 4 public hearings, is that correct? 4 conditional use applications. First one, Mark Davenport. Second one, Daniel Marchand. Third one, Rob Hoke. And fourth one is for Yellow Springs Brewery. And then after that, we'll have a discussion, ongoing discussion of parking in B1 and cover any old business.
No, hopefully that will be hearings as well.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And we'll go on with reviewing the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 meeting. And what I'll do is just go through for members of the Planning Commission page by page, call it out one page at a time, see if anybody has any changes or corrections that need to be made. And if not, then we'll go on. So any additions or changes on page 1? Right. Page 2. Page 3. And page 4. Okay, with not hearing anything, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the February 9th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Amend.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, communications. Judy, was the only communication the note from Susan Stiles?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, regarding just a suggestion for ongoing discussion or future discussion of having to do with transient guest lodging. So, did everybody get that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, council report, Laura?
Yes. So you might have noticed that around town you have some wayfinding signage, and I think it's looking pretty spiffy. And if anybody has any comments for staff, please submit them to council. We have a council meeting on March the 15th, and that should help people find their way around town a little bit more if they don't know. And council did talk briefly about their concerns about transient guest lodging. I think they have an interest in bringing that back to council as a policy matter at some point in the near future. Am I missing anything, Denise or Josue or Judy?
I have a few things.
Okay.
On the matter of the transient guest lodging, council has expressed concern about possible trend of non-owner occupied dwellings being turned into transient guest lodgings rather than the long-term rentals. This goes against the spirit of the original intent, for which in part to provide residents with a way to provide extra income to villagers to offset the cost of living here. There's also other issues that are created by turning what are single-family dwellings to permanent Airbnbs. Could have an impact on income tax for the schools and the village, and there's also the affordability issue. So something that council, to reiterate Laura's point, that council has expressed concern over this, and I'm aware that Planning Commission will revisit the transient guest lodging regulations and will make any necessary recommendations. I've spoken with Council President Brian Hausch, and he certainly looks forward to receiving a recommendation from Planning Commission on the matter. I've got two other topics I would like to discuss or share with Planning Commission. Council did approve the land purchase on the bike path to Agraria, and I've conducted a presentation on that path. So that's available via our YouTube channels and Facebook. So I encourage Planning Commission to watch that video if you haven't already done so, and I'm available to answer any questions on that matter. Also, we are scheduling a town hall meeting for the Safe Routes to School project. That's the project to build sidewalks along Limestone. That town hall is being scheduled for April 14th. I presented briefly at a previous Planning Commission meeting on this, so we're moving that project along. The survey has begun, and we are now at the phase where we want to present something to the community about where the sidewalks will go and what amount of space they'll take up, and solicit public input. So that's scheduled for April 14th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
it for council. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, now I'll open the floor for any citizen comments for any items that are not on tonight's agenda. And if you're out there somewhere and you'd like to comment on something that's not on the agenda, you can either hit the little raise your hand button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen or unmute yourself and make yourself known, and I'll give people a few seconds to see if there's any citizen comments. All right, I'm not hearing anything, so we'll finish with the citizen comments and move on to the first of the public hearings. Conditional use application, Mark Davenport and Juan Lee, I hope I pronounced that correctly, submitted a conditional use application for transient guest lodge establishment. So Denise, would you like to summarize the staff report for us?
Yeah. So if you recall, in November of 2019, there was a conditional use application for, this is a two-family dwelling for one of the units. There was a long-term tenant in the front of the structure. And so that person has passed away, and Mr. Davenport and his wife, who have properties in other locations but often come to Yellow Springs, indicated that they really didn't get to be able to use the transit guest lodging rear unit as much as they wanted to, because they like to stay here about 2 weeks out of the month, because there was just, so much interest in that unit. So they are coming back asking to have the front unit be approved as an Airbnb as well. They also, I just wanted to let you know that on Monday, I did receive the completed inspection report from Miami Township Fire and Rescue. So if this is approved tonight, that would not need to be a condition of approval. That's it.
Okay. All right, so any members of Planning Commission have any questions or concerns right now?
So as the way the rules stand right now, you can have transient guest lodging. You don't have to live there, or you do have to live there?
There isn't anything that says you don't have to live there, or that you have to live there.
Okay.
Well,
Denise-
yes and no. I mean, Denise, would you say it's fair that the reason that this is a conditional use is because they want these kind of things to come before review panel to be, I mean, I guess the thing is, in my mind, if there wasn't any type of project for which there would be a reason for us to consider not granting approval to, then why not just keep it a permitted use, right?
Well, it really has to do with the standards that we put in place. And maybe Breanne can even talk about this a little bit more, but right now, the one thing that we do have has to do with its location in relationship to other Airbnbs, because we wouldn't want a neighborhood to just turn over and become all Airbnbs. So, staff does have that map that we created to see how many are in the vicinity. So that's one reason. Breanne, do you have anything to add to that?
Of course, Planning Commission needs to follow what's in the code, and that is not a requirement in the code, but Planning Commission, in making any sort of determination on any given application, can cite to the factors that it uses in weighing whether or not to grant a conditional use. And council's stated basis for some of the conditions that Planning Commission must consider in 1282 was affordability and trying to make it so that there were more owner-occupied TGLs rather than businesses. So Planning Commission can make that a consideration, but it cannot be the sole determining factor, because that is not actually a requirement in the code that it be owner-occupied.
But in speaking to Matthew's statement about transient guest lodging in general, the spirit of that did come from the belief that people were having a hard time being able to stay here, and this was an opportunity for them to be able to offset the costs of living here and be able to remain in their homes. So that was kind of the original spirit of that.
Right. And to be honest, all the applications I feel like we've largely seen to this point have been circumstances where somebody's improving a auxiliary building on their property, whether it's a garage, or I think Gavin's thing is more like a cottage type deal, or that was on their property. But I mean, those to me feel like they're additive because they're adding a new, something. They're not detracting from the existing housing stock. Those projects, and a project like this one here, it's hard to see how, if we approve something like this, or what kind of precedent are we setting as far as, next month we could have 5 people who are existing landlords say, I don't want to rent out long term anymore. I want to rent out short term rental. So what's the we would have no basis to tell them no. They'd be just as qualified as these projects.
Right. And Matthew, the issue is you have to apply the code as it stands when the application comes before you. Now, again, council has expressed a potential for a trend toward not owner-occupied structures, but as the code stands now, there is nothing restricting or prohibiting that. So Planning Commission has to apply the code as it stands, taking into account that council may choose to modify that upon a Planning Commission recommendation at some point. But as the code stands today, that is not a requirement. So if you deny any TGL application, you have to state what your grounds for denial are.
Okay.
Is there any, do we have any history on other non-owner or renter occupied transient housing and the condition of the maintenance of the house and the tenants that are in there to see if they've detracted to any of the neighborhood previously?
No, I mean, out of the 46, Raven, you can probably step in here, 46 applications that we have 11 that are non-owner occupied, but that also includes like the Morgan House Bed and Breakfast, that includes the Mills Park Hotel, the Outdoor Education Center, the Jailhouse Suites. So
it also includes 2 people who actually live in town, so they have just a separate house that they own. And all the other ones were all applied for and given before we made it a conditional use in August of 2019. So
yes, it used to be a permitted use.
So, and the owners right now currently don't live in town?
That's correct.
So are they going to have a property manager look over the property when they're not here?
Wait, we do live in town when we can. We love Yellow Springs and we're trying to live there more.
Well, but I mean, with the nature of having a short-term rental, couldn't you choose any nights you want to use it for your own purpose? You're not required to rent out any night.
Can we hold up here? Because we haven't opened a public hearing.
Right.
We want to avoid the back and forth if possible. I've also got a question for Breanne. Breanne,
Yep.
does Matt Kirk need to recuse if he has a bed and breakfast?
As far as a potential competitor, that would be appropriate, yes.
Appropriate that he recuse?
If he's got a business that would be a potential competitor to TGL, yes, that would be appropriate.
I mean, I don't consider it to be a competitive type of thing. It's just a matter.
Any sort of business interest under the Ohio ethics law, you would have to recuse yourself completely, not just from voting, but also from any discussion.
I would say in the interest of keeping the decision unchallenged, that we should probably have Matt recuse from the first 2 hearings.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so you just want to mute yourself, Matt.
Sure.
Okay. And then Mark, there'll be an opportunity for Mark to discuss and answer any questions that we have as well. One of the questions that I had regarding the code as it is written has to do with the metering, and that metering is required for transient guest lodge. It has to be metered with the principal building. Is that a concern since both of these units are metered separately?
See, that's specific to that language is for accessory dwelling units.
Okay.
So they're, they have to be separately metered. No, this would not apply because it's already an established 2-family dwelling.
Okay. And members of the Planning Commission have any other questions or concerns right now? Okay, let's, go ahead.
Just to be clear, so the there is nothing in the code right now that says that the owner has to live there. This is just a desire of the village council that we do this. So this is sort of just an intention, but there's no rule. There isn't that, like you were saying, that couldn't be the reason for denying this in and of itself.
So, in and of itself, it could not be the sole reason because that is not a requirement in the code currently.
Okay.
Right.
And again, if you deny, you have to cite your foundational basis for the denial of the application, ideally based on the factors that are outlined in the code as it is currently.
Well, and I would be careful about ascribing any intention to council as a body that hasn't been discussed fully at council, and nor has a recommendation been made. Concerns have been expressed. Planning Commission has been asked to look into the matter and make a recommendation. They tossed some ideas around. There's been nothing voted on or agreed upon as a body from council.
Any other questions or concerns?
I have a question, Denise.
Yeah.
In our RB zoning, what are the rules about commercial uses?
You can have professional offices in RV. What things were you thinking of in particular? Go to the RV.
Short-term rental housing. I mean, this is a commercial, it's changing it from a residential use to commercial use in my view. And that's going to be an important distinction when we get to the next one, which is in RC, where council allowed more commercial uses. This is a neighborhood. There are families that live in this neighborhood.
So transient guest lodging is conditional use in all residential districts.
Yeah, but it's fundamentally a commercial type of use rather than a residential use.
And the code doesn't make that distinction.
Well, but that's what it is.
And that might be definitely something to consider in any amendment we might make as a recommendation to council.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a business. And believe you me, the people who live on property and run it, it's a business. And run it like a business. You have to.
What does the health department laws say about when it turns into more of a commercial use for short-term rental? Is there like a abundance of, cleaning anything that then it falls into once it's?
I don't think the health department regulates this. Breanne, you might be able to step in on this one, but I've talked with Greene County before on that. And I think they maybe for boarding houses, and it has to do with the number of occupants. It's been a long time. I can't remember.
More than five rooms is considered a hotel.
Yeah. Otherwise they don't regulate it.
Anything else from Planning Commission? I'd like to invite Mark, if you want to unmute yourself and perhaps respond to some of the questions and concerns that Planning Commission members have raised, or if any members of Planning Commission have questions for Mark, feel free to ask them. But Mark, if you want to speak first about your application.
Yeah, we understand the concerns, and we do view it as our second home. We like to spend time there when we can. April lives in Centerville. I live in Columbus. It's a perfect place for us to be together. We love Yellow Springs. And I think of it as tourist guest lodging, not transient guest lodging. The word transient just has kind of a connotation to it that's not positive necessarily. But a lot of people have stayed in our place that have been really good people. We've had no problems with any of the neighbors. And it's added to the community in ways that were unexpected to us. People that have come and stayed for a month or two to work with film producers, agricultural endeavors, and a lot of tourists that have come and spread a lot of money around town. And all our neighbors, we've developed good relations with, and it's been an opportunity for us to be able to live in Yellow Springs, which we're thankful for. But we haven't been able to be there enough, so we have hoped to go through this process for the other unit. We waited for the previous tenant to live there. We never raised his rent. Well, we did raise it a little bit, but we didn't raise his rent to get him out, and he ended up going to hospice and moving on. So we allowed it to be residential use as long as it allowed for that current tenant. And then we wanted to be there more, so we've decided to try to use this format, which has worked so well before. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer, and go ahead and fire away.
So, hey, Mark, so you don't have to, how much different economically is it for it to be a rental versus the transient guest lodging? Is it better for you if you could rent it? That would be better, or is it better for doing it, transient guest lodging?
That's a great question. With the pandemic, it sat empty for a little bit, and we were able to use it. But with the pandemic, everything, I have a son with autism, which is why I'm part of the reason I'm keeping my house in Columbus so that he can maintain his current situation. And then April has children that are going to school in their school district. So we've tried to run the numbers, and it's really kind of difficult because we end up getting stuck with the utilities and all the expenses associated with it that would normally be turned over to a tenant. So it's actually not that different for transient guest lodging compared to owner occupied. We have a lot more expenses. We do have more income, but we have more expenses, plus the cleaning and the management associated with it also. But then we do get to use it, which is kind of the bonus of it for us. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mark, do you have somebody here in town so that when you're not in town, as far as a contact for people who are staying there?
Yeah, we do.
In case it's some.
Yes, we have a cleaner that lives right outside of town. And then we also, one of the neighbors helps us with any issues that come up. Plus we pop over when we can, you know. There hasn't been many issues actually, which has been a beautiful thing, but we do have a local lady that helps us turn it after each person, you know, after each tenant.
Any other questions anybody has for Mark? Okay. Laura, were you gonna?
Just big sigh. You come at a time when council, I think, is, you know, this community tries really hard and puts a lot of resources into trying to create housing for folks to actually live here full time, whether that's rental or owner occupied. And as Denise said, the spirit of the allowing TGL was to allow owner-occupied units to people who live there to make some extra money, in part because, you know, as you know, the taxes are high and other costs of living here. I drove by your unit tonight because I wanted to make 100% sure I knew exactly what the surrounding context was like. And as the map shows, it's a neighborhood. And I've lived in places, and occasionally where I live now, where the next door is rented out and in a short-term kind of way, even though it's like a year, it seems like it changes every 6 months sometimes. And it's really hard to create and keep neighborhoods and relationships, which is what neighborhoods are about, when you have TGL and short-term rental. So I think because of the kind of the point in history where we are, why council originally even allowed this to happen at all, I feel like tabling this application until council has a chance to review the planning commission. As a matter of fact, Frank, I think on our future agenda items, we need to put TGL policy and ordinance review on it. So I'm in favor of tabling this application, and I would make that motion.
Laura, before you do that, I would caution the planning commission that you have to consider it under the law as it is currently. You cannot have an ex post facto law.
I don't, Breanne, and I am tabling the motion. I mean, that's my motion. I'm not going one way or another. I think council needs to look at this. And
but I would tell the planning commission you can't consider it under new legislation. It has to be done under the code as it currently stands. I
think this needs more thought. And RB is not meant to be commercial as RC is. I mean, that was intentionally done. And Breanne, you're new and you haven't been here 6 months. So I think you've got to look at the history of what's happened here in the village with housing, with the changes in the code that happened in 2013. And this is kind of, I hate to say it, is kind of right on that line between what we don't want to have happen is that people move out of their houses and then rent them short term.
But,
Can I address that quickly?
Wait a second.
Well, just let me, if I could say, but even if we did table it, if we, whenever we return to it, we'd have to consider it under the rules that existed at
Time
the
the
time the
application's
application
filed,
came.
yes.
Right? Okay. I'm sorry, who
Well-
else was?
Yeah, I have some questions. I mean, especially about the health department laws, because I just.
Wait, I'm sorry. Well, we have a motion. Is there a second motion?
Yeah, then we can have discussion.
Oh, I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so now to discuss Laura's motion.
So I mean, I have just concerns. I quickly just looked up the Ohio Revised Code just to see where the tourist housing was defined out of residential housing, and there is a split there of where they're taking out tourist housing. Obviously, I don't have time to go and dig through and see how they define tourist housing, but I think it bends enough that we should look at it. I do remember when this was going through a lot of the planning with the Chamber of Commerce. I do remember it was specifically that, they were talking about making it to make sure this kind of instance wouldn't happen. I'm also rather interested in the effect that the neighbors think it's going to have on the property in the neighborhood. I definitely know with having small children around, how it would make me very nervous if there was, 2 units with who knows who there, whenever, when no one even locally, like right there in the neighborhood, knows who's coming in and out if there was a problem. So I can see where it could have an impact based upon where it is. It is right by a park as well. I think some input from the neighbors would be helpful, and a little more look into where the state and the health department are going to make these lines between tourist housing is how it was put in the Ohio law versus the residential.
I'm sorry. So just to give you a little history, since there's been reference to what council's intentions have been, Planning Commission was very clear in its intent when it brought its initial recommendation to council, which was that it be a conditional use. Council said, no, we don't want to put any parameters around it. It should be a permitted use. Planning Commission was the body that said, you need to put some parameters around this. After more of those started running through without being conditionally permitted, they were simply approved because council had said we want it to be a permitted use. They panicked. It went back to Planning Commission. Planning Commission said, yes, we said conditional use. That was implemented and it slowed tremendously. Now, I think what you have to be very careful of is letting council get in front of Planning Commission when Planning Commission is the body charged with gatekeeping these uses. You have before you the conditional uses set up by the Planning Commission for reviewing exactly these. Those are what this body has set forth. If you're deciding that in fact that's inadequate, I don't know, that sort of, to me, it does a disservice for the folks who've applied for these uses under the current planning code. That's what they read. That's what they understood. That's why they brought those uses forward to this body. That's just an opinion, and that's a little history on how that went back and forth between Planning Commission and
And to piggyback on that, excuse me, staff is on top of this. We are aware with these 2 applications that maybe we need to revisit this. And we've already met with Breanne, our attorney, to discuss bringing this to the next Planning Commission meeting, and as well as with some suggested text amendments. So it's what you have is what you have right here before you, but we are going to be, we are on top of this. We will bring something to council, hopefully by their April 19th meeting. If you approve and come to some sort of agreement on amendments at your April 13th meeting.
Any other comments on Laura's motion?
But the rules for this particular application are fixed.
That is correct.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like there's definitely a lot of interest in sort of clarifying what can happen, but it just seems like that is, the future is totally separate from the things that are here right now.
I mean, I think my concern is, what the neighbors are saying.
Well, we did send out notices to the neighbors. We didn't get any adjacent and abutting neighbors surrounding that property. And there was a sign out front, but we didn't get any communications. I'm not aware of any. I didn't get any phone calls. Judy, you didn't
Okay,
get
so
Were they any letters of support given by the neighbors for the applicant?
We didn't get anything. Nothing.
I would be happy to
go ahead and, I was just going to call the vote on Laura's motion, which has been seconded, the motion to table this. While we get that done, and then we can return to the discussion of the application. Does that make sense? Okay, so would you call the roll, please, Judy?
Yes, Curlis.
Yes.
Green.
No.
Amend.
Yes.
Doden.
No.
Breanne, my understanding is that means the motion does not pass. Am I correct?
Yes, if there's a 4-4 tie with one abstention, then it would not pass. No majority.
Okay, so now we can return to the discussion of the application. Let's see, I'm trying to, Mark, was there something else that you wanted to say before we open the public hearing on this?
Yes, I would be happy to provide letters of recommendation. We've actually made friends with all our neighbors as we've lived there. I've helped people shovel their driveway and just been a part of the community. I mean, I haven't been able to live there, but it's been a way that I've been able to participate in the community and the neighborhood. So it's really been a great thing, not only for me, but for the neighbors. And notice no one showed up to express any concerns. And I know that's a statement of neutrality, but a letter of approval or acceptance, I'm sure we could have our friends that are our neighbors now sign if that would help in any way.
Okay, anything else from any members of the Planning Commission before I open the public hearing on this? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If any members of the public would like to comment on this application, again, you can use the raise your hand button in the upper right-hand corner of your screen.
Are you able to maintain property insurance and liability with it being a transient housing for dual units? Because that's
Yes, no problem. That hasn't been a problem at all.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. If any members of the public would like to comment on this application, you can raise your hand by hitting the button in the upper right-hand corner or unmute yourself and make yourself known. And I'll give people a little bit of time here to chime in while we all stare at each other on Zoom. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and then bring it back to the Planning Commission. Any final or additional thoughts that members of the Planning Commission have at this point? All right. Interesting discussion, and obviously lots of lots of ground for future discussions as well, for revisiting the code as it currently stands. But, understanding it as it's been explained so far, I'll make a motion that we approve the application.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the application. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Curlis,
No.
Green,
Yes.
Amend,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see you around town soon.
And hope you understand it's a complicated situation, Tom.
I can see it's getting more complicated.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to then move on to the second conditional use application. Is it Danielle Marchand?
Yes.
Right. And so Denise is coughing. Would you like to go over the staff report, please?
Yes. Danielle Marchand, who lives at 104, has the house at 104 West Limestone Street, has submitted the application to turn her current home into an Airbnb for a 3-night minimum stay. She's located, as you can see on the map, there's the Mills Park Hotel, the Morgan House Bed and Breakfast, and then there's Eric Clark's Airbnb on Davis Street, and then Gavin's that is further down on Limestone. She wants to rent it out for these 3-night minimum stays. She indicated for this yoga retreats that come into town, which I think she can explain in more detail. There was actually an article in the paper this week. She is the owner of Wildflower Boutique and is getting ready to move to another location in Kings Yard, expanding her business. This home has 4 to 5 bedrooms in it, 2.5 baths. She will not be living at the residence. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any members, Planning Commission, comments, questions, concerns?
Denise, which of the little black houses in the map are owner occupied but have a TGL? I mean, we know the hotel's there in the red, but what about, and the Morgan House is next door. That's not owner occupied, correct?
Correct. Eric Clark has his house that he lives in, and behind that separate lot is his transient guest lodging, that little lot that's on the by the parking lot of the library. And then Mr. Leonard, further down the street on Limestone, he has his house and his accessory dwelling unit.
And what about the other 3? Aren't there 3 more there to the west, like on Davis?
Phillips Street.
Phillips and Whiteman, aren't those all owner occupied and have an ADU that's TGL? How's that for some acronyms?
Stand by. I think I can look that up really fast.
The other one on Davis, am I correct, is no longer being used as transient guest lodging. Is that correct, Denise? That's McQueen's?
Well, right now, she hasn't pulled her application completely, but that one was owner occupied. So yeah, that is correct.
I think maybe the one at Phillips and Limestone is not owner occupied.
That's true. They are back and forth from. Right.
Kind of like the Davenport situation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments from members of Planning Commission about this application?
I do have a comment because I thought long and hard about this, and there are only I could think of one other property that is an owner-occupied property right now that I'm going to say is being sandwiched in by commercial and multifamily. It's like, and they are on the edges of the CBD, the Central Business District. And this particular property is in, you could even, call it a growing transient guest lodging or hotel district. With the hotel, with the Morgan House, it's sandwiched right between. Across the street's going to be multifamily. And I'm kind of, as you can tell from the last discussion, I'm more interested in protecting two things: our neighborhoods, and also we keep struggling with building more housing, and here we're giving up housing, right? I mean, we're going at cross purposes to our policies, it seems, as council. But with that said, there's this property and one other came to mind that if that was going to be not owner occupied transient guest lodging, honestly, I think it's a pretty good use for it. And I don't have any issues about it. I don't think it goes against the spirit. I think it's, you could even, if they even petition to be part of the CBD, you might let them do it because of the growing kind of hotel area there. Mm-hmm. And it's not spot zoning, see? So those are my comments. Thanks.
Well, and I would say, just because I know we're going to work on this later, that the location matters. And then also, I mean, if this house goes to sale, it's going to go for what, $500,000? That's not affordable housing. We're not taking away an apartment from somebody that was affordable. And I think we need to look at that as a consideration in the future if we're going to redo this.
That's interesting.
Any other questions or concerns? Danielle, would you like to talk a little bit about your application?
Yeah, first I just want to thank everyone for having me on tonight. So I do live there part-time on and off. As Denise mentioned, I don't know if she mentioned this, but I just had a baby a couple months ago. So I'm currently not living there full-time. I do still live there part-time and still claim residency there. I have a business downtown that I've had for almost 6 years. I'm getting ready to expand and move into a larger storefront, and then turn my current storefront to another business there in town. So I claim residency in town. I pay taxes in Greene County. I have 2 retail stores. So this is just kind of adding to the portfolio for me and offering kind of a more well-rounded opportunity for my business in town. I don't see it probably being rented out all the time because I still obviously want to stay there once in a while. But with, like Denise said, it being right downtown and Sarah mentioned, it is right in the business district. So it's just a great opportunity to offer it to other people as the town gets a little bit busier and offer one home to multiple people to come visit. But once again, I do stay there part-time. So it's not going to be completely not owner occupied. I'm just not going to be living at the home during resident stay or tenant stay.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. All right. Does any planning commission members have any questions for Danielle? Go ahead then and open the public hearing. So if there's any members of the public who would like to comment, please electronically raise your hand or unmute yourself. Give you a few seconds. Not hearing anything, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to Planning Commission for any final thoughts and possibly a vote then. So,
were there any public comments on this? Was anybody respond to the letters or?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, they would have been part of our communications, and there wasn't anything. So.
Can I ask a question that's just kind of cool? of a nature? Or am I not allowed to ask that? I was just curious, like, is it renting the whole home or renting rooms within the home?
What I'm going to be offering is the whole home. So it is 5 bedrooms. It will sleep 10 people, but is the entire home. So it's more of a suite experience that people get to enjoy for 3 days at a time, the 3-day minimum.
All right, I will go ahead and move that we approve the application.
I'll second.
Okay. And would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes. Amend.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Danielle, for being here. Okay. And now, so Matthew, you can rejoin us, but now I'm going to have to leave. So I'm not sure who takes over for me tonight, but I will recuse for conditional use application number 3 since I'm part of this whole bakery project, and I will mute myself and watch what happens. Who's sharing while I'm out then?
I'll volunteer if nobody else wants to jump at that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So this application is regarding something we've seen before. It's a bakery business at Millsworks. And staff, Denise, do you want to talk about this application?
Yeah, you saw this business in January. They're coming back to the Planning Commission as they wanted to expand their use to allow for retail that's incidental to the manufacture or production of goods on the premises, not exceeding 30% of the total floor area of the business. And they, as I've pointed out in the report, they're way under that. They're not going to have any, everything else stays the same. There won't be any on-site food consumption or on-site sales because they'll do everything through their app. There will also not be any display cases. But I did want to also mention as well, so this is just adding another layer of use, which is a conditional use and is permitted is allowed in the I-1 district. And even though this is technically a PUD, it has the underlying I-1 layer to it. And that since the January meeting, the ownership of Millworks has changed, and Allison Moody is the new owner, and she's here tonight if the case the Planning Commission has any questions for her relating to this application.
Denise, what does incidental retail mean? What is that?
So the brewery manufactures beer.
Yeah.
Sales. They have a big manufacturing area, and so they are allowed to sell their brewery items as retail incidental. So 30% or less for what is their space at Millworks.
Okay.
That's not the same. I won't confuse it with their other application tonight because that's a completely different district. But in I-1, that is how they are able to have their tap room. So just to use that as an example.
Okay.
And I just want to say for the record, because Millworks has sold, I do not have a relationship. And nice to meet you, Allison, for the first time on Zoom. I had to recuse myself before. I don't have a professional relationship with the new owner. But welcome and thank you for investing in Yellow Springs. Does Planning Commission have any other comments or questions for Allison or Rob?
Here.
Okay. So we'll have a chance to come back. So I think at this point, what I'll do is open the public hearing on this application. So the public hearing is now open For anyone who wants to call in, raise their hand. You know, COVID-19, the 19 stands for 19 pounds, like we need a bakery, but this is a good thing. Okay. All right.
I would just like to speak in support of this. I think it fits well with the other businesses that have come in and that have this sort of retail limit. So I am just a community member and just speaking in support of the bakery and this permit.
Thank you. And just to confirm on the Zoom, you are Sheryl Cunningham.
That is correct.
Great.
Yes.
For the record, thank you. Any other public comments, please? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to Planning Commission. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Sarah?
You want me to read it? To
Yeah.
approve the conditional use application for the site plan in the B2 General Business District for, where's the address? I'm not reading the parcel ID.
For the, in the,
Is it 1475?
no.
Oh, that's the other one.
305 North Walnut Street, Building A.
Thank you. 305 North Walnut Street, Building A.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So now that we have a second, we can have further discussion. Is there any further discussion by Planning Commission?
I just have one general question as far as what all did you guys need to do to get it to be a food grade facility? Because I know that's like, you know, it's not just your average, any building you walk into, can you produce food in?
Can I just, at point of order, for Laura or Breanne, we've got the motion. Are we?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
back into the?
Well, you have when you have a second, you have further discussion. You can have further discussion.
Well, but we're reopening a dialogue with the applicant at this point.
It's not a.
That's Robert's rules. That's what I'm going by. I mean, if there are any follow-up questions, I think it's totally appropriate.
Okay, well, we have to deal with, oh, yes?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
The health department requires all proper surfaces. All the equipment has to be rated. We're gonna have a hood in there, so we have to make sure that's appropriate for the type of food we're gonna be preparing, as well as the air balancing of the space in there. So those are the kind of high level things that we have to deal with to get it to be acceptable, you know, to prepare and sell food.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions before we vote on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Judy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Green,
Yes.
Amend,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we invite Frank Doden back to chair the meeting for the last item.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for showing up, Rob. And now we'll move on to the fourth conditional use application for Yellow Springs Brewery Space. Private events involving tastings, craft beers, brewing and storage area at 1475 Xenia Avenue. Denise, would you like to go over the staff report, please?
Yeah, I'm just going to give a condensed version here because you know, the Planning Commission has seen the brewery many times for this location. But one of the things that they wanted to do was to be able to use it as a second location. Previously, the conditional use hearing was based on private events. So this is just adding the use of being able to have it as an open to the public second location for their brewery. And that's pretty much all that I need to say on it. Staff supports it.
And was there something about that this was a part of the town where, wasn't this something that related to businesses that had to do with cars? I mean, is there a question about whether this fits into the whatever the sort of the character of this neighborhood? Does that make any difference, or was there also something about taking away from things that should be downtown?
Well, it's a brew pub. The brew pub is and restaurants are allowed uses in B2. So okay. If that is, we do what you're thinking more of is like retail stores. I know that you can't even say that even in B2 because you could technically say that about Dollar General. But I know when there was a discussion about the Center for Business and Education, the Commerce Park that the Village owns, that's one of the restrictions in that is, no retail because you didn't want to take away from the downtown. But that's really not the case here.
Okay. It's really, there's the restaurant right out there too. So not really much difference.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Other questions or concerns? I had a question, I guess it was a couple of pages into the report, Denise, about the proposed hours of operation. Everybody see where I am? I guess it's bottom of the third page. 10 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. These hours may vary depending on whether it'll be used for a private event or if it'll be operating as open to the public. And when we eventually get around to talking with Lisa and Nate about that, I'd just like a little clarification on the language there, if that's possible. Or maybe Denise, you have more information about the hours of use.
I was just taking that from the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there concern about parking?
I don't have any concern right now other than what we had in which already still is a requirement is if we see that they need to use that other southerly lot, that they will, prepare that for parking. Okay. Which I talked with Lisa on the phone and right now that they did have like a storage trailer, semi trailer there. And they would definitely move those things as they need it. But right now they have 30 parking spaces and their total occupancy is 50 people. So, a lot of people also have the option of coming via bicycles or walking on that pathway. So I don't see it as an issue. But if it would become one, then, we can come back and have them do that. But I would think they would probably figure that out themselves. I think my only concern is that alley. And I don't right now, I don't think there is a way to cut through there, but I just need clarification on that because that would be one thing that I just wouldn't want people at 11, 12 o'clock at night cutting through the alley to get home. If they,
I walk that out pretty regularly. There's no cut through, I don't think, right there. Really? I think you have to go off the pad through a grass strip and then into the alley.
Yeah.
So I guess you could do it, but it's not promoted. It doesn't appear. You're right.
Are there fencing or other sort of light dampening for the residents behind where that parking lot's going to be?
You mean lights that might shine into the
neighborhood? When the cars are moving in and out?
Oh, you'd have to ask the applicant. There is, as far as the lighting that they're putting on, they're not putting on any parking lot lighting, and they're going to have low-level lighting around the building, which they probably have up.
Yeah, I'm more worried about when the cars go in and out at night, if they're going to start getting headlights going in their windows all the time, which might become more of a nuisance if they don't have the proper fencing up to prevent the light to have or plants or something.
We can ask the applicant.
Out of curiosity, does anybody know how the bowling alley dealt with it? Was it in a bowling alley for kind of a long time?
Yeah, but who knows? That was in the 70s, and I don't think it's been.
I think that was before cars had headlights, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I think there is a line of trees back there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My satellite image on GIS won't load. Otherwise, I'd share it.
Yeah, it's a well vegetated alley.
Yeah, Lisa and Nate, maybe is it okay with Planning Commission if we turn to Lisa and Nate here to maybe answer some of the questions that have been raised?
I think Ted is representing them.
Oh, okay. What is at the back of the lot there? Just because I don't know that we ever discussed the possibility of car headlights before, but that might be a concern.
Well, let me just say that right now there are some storage trailers and there is some trees. There's on the other side of the alley, the neighbors do have privacy fences all the way down through there. I would like to remind Planning Commission that we have zoning approval for the event space as it is. And the only reason that we're coming here for the tap room is to be able to survive COVID financially for the business, to be able to have some people in that building to offset some of the losses that are being taken on the other tap room. Ultimately, this wants to be in an event center when society gets back to normal. And, you know, if it's a tap room, it probably won't maintain itself as a tap room if the event space is really taking off. But I would just caution Planning Commission, this is about COVID and business survival for this client, and adding conditions that cost them more money is duly unfair during this period of time.
I think Ted, you know, we got to be careful how we word this, because we want to make sure that, you know, it could be during COVID, but you might want it for longer than that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But you know what we just want to make sure too is just they first, we don't want them cutting through the alley, and I understand the issue with the headlights, but if that becomes a problem, we can also bring it to their attention at that point.
Yeah, I just thought it was a question that I don't think had come up before in any of the prior discussions that we'd had with the space. I hadn't really thought about the car headlights before. I thought, no, that was just kind of interesting concern. And I was just wondering what the back of that lot was like. I couldn't really remember it. So.
That's because I've heard the complaints from people in Xenia over and over and over again. Is there not any anything on the books for proper screening of parking lots when it's going to be regular use commercial in evening hours?
Nothing that's required. You can, I mean, that's something that could be made a condition of, but I think we could do it mainly on a complaint basis and come back. Like what Ted said, I think the concern is that, you know, they've put a lot into this, and it's, you know, had its delays, and with COVID, we just want to give them every opportunity to be successful at this location. And if there are issues with that, we can definitely, staff can definitely talk to them about it.
Yeah, and really, if we were going to operate that as a tap room, we currently only stay open until 10 o'clock at night anyways.
Yeah.
So
that was,
really for the event side of things, people don't want to stop their wedding at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
You know, typically an event.
So it'd be more, the later hours would be more for a special event.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's our desire. Currently, our plan is to be open minimally, just to get things going from on Friday from 3 to 9, Saturday 3 to 9, and Sunday 3 to 8.
Okay.
And there is no there once was access to the alley via vehicles, but not anymore.
Okay.
And Denise, on page 7, you have noted that, no, on page 6, that there's already 2 conditions we already approved: bike racks for pedestrian use.
Yep.
And the southerly lot will be resurfaced and striped in case it's needed.
In case it's, yeah, that's already been.
Did we already approve the patio?
Yes.
Okay.
Planning Commission approved the patio, and it's coming for the BZA hearing on the 31st of March.
Okay. Okay.
Any members of Planning Commission have any other questions or concerns for Ted or Lisa or Nate? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. So if there's any members of the public who would like to comment on this application, you can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself, and please state your name.
Hi, everybody. This is Sheryl Cunningham again, and I just wanted to speak in support of this. I am actually a neighbor of this area, so I live on Miami Drive, so I'm not directly adjacent on that alleyway, but I do live in the neighborhood, and I actually think it will be good for Calypso, the restaurant that's out here too. So we all know that's sort of a tough spot for a restaurant to be in. So I think that there could be some, and they do delivery, so I think that that could be kind of an interesting thing as well. So I think just to support not only the brewery, but also the restaurant that's out here, this seems like a pretty good option to me in terms of trying to get through the end of COVID.
Thank you, Sheryl. Any other public comments? Give everybody a few seconds. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission. Any final thoughts? I'll move that we approve. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to move that we approve the use for a brew pub as applied with the, let's see, the conditions that the rear alley not be available for vehicular access. And I think that's it, because we already dealt with this other parking lot. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Amend.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
thank you, Nate, Lisa, and Ted.
Thank you for your understanding, and hopefully we won't see you here again.
Quit coming back here.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess that now gets us to item on the agenda, the amendment to the zoning code, the parking minimums again, is that right?
Yes, so staff and Raven and myself met with 2 members of the Planning Commission as a subgroup, as you recall, that was suggested. Laura Curlis and Matthew Kirk met, and we did some amendments, further amending it. And Raven, I don't know if you can share that, if you have it handy. Since our subgroup meeting, I did mention in there the estimated number of parking spaces at or within so many feet of the property. We might want to make a determination on that. But basically, the parking management plan is a little bit, it's more specific. We want it to include the estimated maximum number of customers, total number of off-street parking spaces, any private or shared use private parking lot agreements, estimated number of public parking spaces that are at or within so many feet of the property, and then peak hours of operation and on-site bicycle parking facilities, as well as plans for employee parking. So we tightened it up rather than just saying encouraging it.
Right.
This is the things that we're requiring. And that's pretty much it.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, we'll take it back to council again. And Laura, do you feel that that might be something that council was more palatable for council?
I think so. You know, there's of course differing views, but I think this is a good way forward. It's sort of practical. It's what, you know, what we had was not workable. And this makes the business owner think through this issue so that we can, and you, staff, can talk about their plans and how to address their needs. So I think let's give it a go. Within how many feet, you know, I haven't done any research on this, like how far do people, you know, what's a good number? I have no idea.
What I found, Laura, in the research that I was able to do was you count in other communities, the parking spaces in front of the building and to the sides of the building, which isn't going to apply in our downtown because there are no sides. So I thought, well, maybe, you know, we could say at or within, you know, 100 feet.
100 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Do we need to add a number in there at this point?
If you think 100 feet would be fine, we can add that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, motion?
I would move we send this recommendation to council with 100 feet inserted in H.
100 feet inserted in H.
To section H.
Hey Denise, question. Where is the section that states that a new construction in the B1 Central Business District would require to have X number of spaces? Would we have such a requirement, or would that just?
They would have to submit this parking plan and provide us with the estimated number of spaces they're planning for.
But they wouldn't necessarily have to. Interesting.
I mean, if you're building a hotel and you say you only need 5 spaces and you're building a 30-room hotel, I think Planning Commission would really would wonder about that one. So,
but will we be able to say no? I guess is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, we could say no, that we want more spaces. We want to see more.
Well, but not if there. Is it like, yeah. Where would the teeth of that be, I guess?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't really have any teeth in it now. I mean, right now we have this thing about 600 feet, and 600 feet applies to any of our public parking spaces. So it's kind of not being used really well at all now. It's kind of staff's taking a look at it based on what they're saying and using those formulas for how many square feet for this or how many. It just depends on the use, and it's not really working. So we kind of thought, well, it might be better just to have them, you know, really have to think about what they need for parking and how are they going to go about it, putting that on them. Because otherwise they could just go ahead and say, oh, well, we're within 600 feet of this or 600 feet of that.
Okay.
So
So
to
if
Matt,
oh, go ahead.
so to Matt's point, so if they want to build a hotel, but they say it's just for people on bicycles, so they don't need any parking. I mean, does it even where does it even say about they're going to submit a parking plan, but is there some kind of criteria in there that that it gets approved?
It has to be an acceptable parking plan.
Acceptable parking plan. Okay, so right.
Those uses and the guidelines for determining the number of spaces is still in there. It's just that we're not requiring parking minimums anymore. We're taking that out of the code and instead telling them, I'm so sorry, I'm losing my voice. Instead telling them that they have to submit a parking plan, but we can still fall back on that. It's still there. It's just not, it's not going to be a requirement that they have to have those parking minimums, but it can definitely still be used as a guide.
So if there's an instance of gross neglect, 30 rooms and 5 parking spaces, can we deny the application based upon?
Breanne, I would think so, but Breanne, that's your.
Yes, I mean, you can deny the application, or you can or the zoning administrator can kick it back and say, this does not meet what we would perceive to be the minimum number of spaces for this type of operation, even though it's not defined in our code, the type of use based on what we already have in the code. And Denise took the words right out of my mouth. We've already got a benchmark to measure against. So that's remaining in the code. It's just that we're repealing the downtown section because we've had so many that have had to come to Planning Commission say, we can't comply with these requirements because so many of the buildings are older and there's hardly any on-street parking, any on-site parking. So they have to bring Denise a plan. Denise can measure it against what's still in the code and say whether or not that is reasonable compared to, the basis of her experience and what's in the code.
To answer your question, Steve. Anybody have, do we have to treat this do we have to have a public hearing on this?
You do, and you've got an open motion and it's pretty messy.
Right.
Conflated, sending it to council with amending that section. And we didn't get a second, so.
Right.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So now we need to vote on the motion, which is to amend the section by adding the word 100 into the number of feet required and to send the recommendation to council.
And where is the public hearing part?
Right.
Yes, that's
because we'll need to do the public hearing before we vote.
So I would separate the because.
So do a motion for the.
Yes, because you are amending what you have presented to the public. You cannot open the public hearing unless you've already done that.
Okay. All right. So
I move to amend section H to add the number 100.
Second.
Okay. So thank you very much. So let's vote on that. Would you call the roll, please?
Yeah, Kirk.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Amend.
Yes.
Doden.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this. If any members of the public want to comment on this proposed change, raise your hand electronically or unmute yourself. All right, hearing no public comment, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to Planning Commission then, where we can now entertain a motion to send it on to council, right?
Yeah, I'll move to send this to council as a recommendation from Planning Commission.
Okay, I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Yes, Green,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Amend,
Yes.
Doden.
Yes. All right. So, looking at the agenda, was there anything on for old business? Nothing on old business or new business?
Do we have to have the?
On the new business, we need to talk about changing the law related to transient guest lodging, whether we want to make any changes in the law or not, or, you know.
Well, it certainly sounds like it's worth bringing up again and having the conversation.
So that really falls under agenda planning.
Yeah.
We don't have any new business for tonight.
Oh, sorry. That was
That's okay. So is everybody taking a deep breath?
You're going to give us some new business?
I'll give you agenda planning.
Oh, okay.
Right.
We're going to start April's
meeting.
My
whiteboard.
We're going to start April's meeting tomorrow.
Now, mind you, I don't have all of these applications in yet, but everyone has like indicated that they want to come to the next meeting. So we might have to talk about that. It might require a second meeting in April, which we don't normally do, but we have potentially a conditional use hearing for a home occupation, a conditional use hearing for the comedy club, conditional use hearing for a Cresco expansion of their medical marijuana facility, a conditional use hearing, well, some of these have site plan reviews, for 314 Dayton Street, the Union Schoolhouse, a conditional use hearing for a residence with an agro business and classes in E1, EI educational institution, a conditional use hearing for a multi-use, formerly the Shaddix property in town, which would be like a little sort of a restaurant. They're going to do some kayak rentals for a tour bus or something that they want to do, car shows, that kind of thing. And then our transit guest lodging text amendments.
Easy breezy.
Now, mind you, people have until March 24th to bring forth applications. And this is what we have right now.
Nice.
So,
options is possibly to start early.
Yes,
start at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, or possibly or possibly having two meetings.
I think we should start early and possibly consider having two meetings too.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you don't think?
These are big.
Denise, did you mention the firehouse already?
Yes, that's the comedy club. Yeah. So I mean, those are big things. I mean, the comedy club, the Cresco expansion, what possibilities are going to happen for 314 Dayton Street, the old Union Schoolhouse. Those three alone are huge. And then we have transient guest lodging, and then these other, and even the one, the former Shaddix property on the south, they're all huge.
Yeah, that's a major investment. That building needs a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So. And they've been doing a lot of cleanup. So
they have. Did you see the tractor fall apart out front?
No, I haven't.
So if we were to have two meetings, when would they fall?
Your first meeting in April is actually on the 13th because of the way that the
calendar falls.
Yeah.
So I would suggest if we do this, that we do April 13th and April 20th. If we go to April 6th, I just don't know if somewhere, and I want to play it by ear because it's possible that some of these are not going to be able to come through, and we could do everything on April 13th. But if all of these come through, then I'd want to split it up.
Right.
It's of any comfort, I sit through these meetings with you guys.
Sorry, what was that?
If it's of any comfort to you all, I sit through these meetings.
That's true. You're going to sit through them with us. So
Denise, just a question. Do you think any of these applications will be ready by Tuesday, March 30th? The reason I say that, it's one of those 5-week months when we have an extra week, and it's that week.
No, because we would have to put the public notice in by Monday, next month.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And we're having a BZA hearing on the 31st, Yellow Springs Brewery, which I see Lisa on here. Hopefully, I haven't told them that yet, but
But you mentioned it earlier.
yeah, I need to.
Oh, there's Lisa.
Lisa, so you probably didn't know about this.
What was the date again? I'm sorry.
Wednesday, March 31st.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
6 o'clock.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so
I haven't gotten quite there yet, but.
So heads up for a busy April.
So you want us to reserve Tuesday evening, April 20th? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
7 o'clock, okay. And do you think we need to start at 6 on the 13th?
I do.
Okay.
On the 13th, and if people don't get everything in by the 24th, then they have to wait till May.
Okay.
And if everybody comes through by March 24th, then we're going to have 2 meetings.
Okay.
Or 2 planning commissions.
It's fun.
So Judy, did you mention, I mean, everybody's aware of the resignation of Dino. So that was a month or so ago.
Oh, I wasn't.
No.
I didn't know that.
So, council will be, or has council already filled that position? I'm confused. We have 5 people right now, so has council filled that position already?
No,
Matthew's an alternate. Yeah, it hasn't been advertised. Matthew's an alternate.
Is an alternate.
Right.
Okay. And we have lost another alternate. We have now lost Susan Stiles. So
that's an alternate. Okay.
In the paper.
Okay.
For those, but as you know, you need to talk to friends and neighbors because it's not one of those easy commissions to be on, as you well know. It requires a little convincing sometimes and seeing, who's out there who might be able to serve well and be a good collaborative member of the group and all that sort of thing. So please look around.
All right. Anything else beyond that for agenda planning?
Boy, I hope not. So.
All right. Well, I move then that we adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Kirk?
Yes.
Amend?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Curlis?
Yes.
Doden?
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Got through that reasonably well.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.